There are generally two major schools of thought when it comes to our perception of life. Existential determinism, according to which life is meaningless, and we as individuals have no real control over the discourse of the universe. We live in an Albert Einstein's block universe where time is an actual dimension. The past, present, and future are set, and we are simply experiencing the flow of time as we move along the forward arrow through every discrete slice of this four-dimensional universe. Now, in the movie Matrix, Agent Smith was essentially a representation of this idea. He was the one who, once he fully understood his position, fully accepted his role in the system, as well as the eventual end of it all. Then there is non-determinism, the idea behind the existence of free will, according to which life's meaning is defined by the choices that we individually make and how we perceive it. In Matrix, this was represented by Neo. Now, which is it? What is the true nature of the universe, and why can't we actually be happy as humans? After all, people want to be happy, don't they? Or at least, that is what they all say. They all say they want to be happy. So much so that happiness is often placed above material successes as the ultimate goal. And even in childhood, our favorite stories and story endings are happily ever after. Young girls who dream of being princesses and later on brides look for their happy ending in the embrace of their own one true love. When people surveyed couples in the streets about what would they give priority to, whether being rich or happy life full of love, the vast majority of people would choose happy life. But we all know that happiness is often so hard to achieve that you might question whether humans are even meant to be happy. This is one of the reasons cynics would choose money, because no matter how much they would want to believe in some kind of ultimate happiness, they know it is ultimately unachievable. Now, the true answer, as always, depends on what you mean by happiness. Are humans meant to be positive and upbeat all of the time? Is this what we are striving for? Is this what we are dreaming of? No. But are humans meant to live meaningful lives? Sure, most likely they are. But the fact remains that research shows that the odds may actually not be in our favor at all. Does that, however, mean that we should not dream and strive for more fulfilled and meaningful lives? So let's first look at what happiness means and how it is actually defined. A psychologist would most likely tell you that happiness is essentially defined by subjective well-being of one. It's a concept that was coined by American psychologist Ed Diener, according to whom it consists of two important components: affective balance, which deals with our moods and emotions, and appraisal of life satisfaction, which deals with judgments of our lives. The problem is that this is obviously vastly different from what most people view as the ultimate happiness, which would generally come down to some kind of a level of internal satisfaction, which once again is vastly different from the view offered by literature in the form of utopia or religion through its concept of heaven and eternal life of happiness. For this reason, it is kind of obvious to assume that there are different approaches to happiness in general. My concern is that if this is true and happiness is literally just a subjective state of mind that may be affected by our culture, upbringing, expectations, ideas, ideals, and imaginations, does this then mean that there is literally no general happiness, such as the one that is often offered through the concepts such as paradise or heaven? So let's consider the idea that there are different approaches to happiness. A person has higher subjective well-being if they experience positive effects frequently and thus feel satisfied with most areas of their lives. This, however, does not tell us much until we actually look at this approach to happiness as hedonic, meaning that everything is mostly pleasure-oriented. Simply said, we are happy when we feel happy. On the other hand, this could be contrasted with the eudaimonic approach that focuses on living a life that is meaningful and fully realized. In other words, you don't need to feel happy to be happy. There are some obvious problems with both of these approaches though. Hedonia is often characterized by the feelings of pleasure from positive inputs, which is not that far from what actually drugs provide us. I mean, let's break it down. I love cooking, but in a way, I have to feel like cooking to be fully inspired and achieve a level of happiness when doing so. Often though, my own personal laziness gets the better of me and I order food in. Not necessarily because it is better, but despite that fact, it can provide me with some kind of a sense of contentment and a feeling of happiness. This kind of happiness is only temporary because nothing lasts. Quite literally, even if you did meth, which is supposed to provide you with a million times greater feeling of happiness than heroin would do, which is already way above simple chocolate, the feeling that simple chocolate would do, but it won't last. Are we therefore doomed to chase happiness forever? Are the nature of things and our brain essentially constantly working against us? Russ Harris wrote in his book, The Happiness Trap, evolution has shaped our minds so that we are almost inevitably destined to suffer psychologically, to compare, evaluate, and criticize ourselves, to focus on what we are lacking, to be dissatisfied with what we have, and to imagine all sorts of frightening scenarios, most of which will never happen. No wonder humans find it hard to be happy. Now, simply put, it's impossible to only feel positive emotions, and at the same time, even if you could somehow achieve that state of mind, cutting out other emotions such as anxiety, fear, anger, and sadness would probably do us more harm than good. You'd quite literally have to be in some sort of happy-clappy induced coma just to stop you from getting in harm's way. There's an interesting book called Good Reasons for Bad Feelings by Randolph Ness, who said, "Our brains were shaped to benefit our genes, not us. Natural selection does not give a fig about our happiness." Then, in direct contrast, we have another way of looking at this. Eudaimonia is the polar opposite of the hedonistic outlook on life and happiness. In contrast to hedonia, it is far less about the subjective feeling of good and much more about the effort, the pursuit of being good. There are two researchers who looked at this a bit deeper, Dechi and Ryan, according to whom it is about living well and actualizing one's potential as a human being. In one of their papers they wrote, "Well-being is not so much an outcome or an end state as it is a process of fulfilling or realizing one's daemon or true nature. It is about fulfilling one's virtuous potential and living as one was inherently intended to live." Obviously, this is not something many of us would willingly reconcile with as the perceived state of happiness we got so used to over the years through indoctrination, such as movies, social media, books, or even religious texts and studies. The sad truth is that most do not think about our virtuous potential as human beings during our ordinary daily lives. Most of the time, and for most of the people on this planet, the daily grind is mostly about survival. Obviously, each of us has a different buffer of just how much of a break we can take from that grind, but generally speaking, with the exceptions of super rich, we're all in the same boat. And even in the case of those that are super rich, and survival is no longer such an issue, there is still no guarantee they will ever enjoy true happiness. What I'm trying to say is that if we can get through the day in a way that aligns with our values, we can pretty much count ourselves lucky. And this makes eudaimonia scary to me. That being said, in a way, that is the wonder of a meaningful life. a life lived with purpose, leaving your mark for many of us, at least as we age. And to be honest, often enough, it doesn't even matter if we achieve our potential or not, as long as we truly live. I think it was David Feldman who once wrote, "The most satisfying forms of meaning may blossom not when we pursue them directly, but when we instead seek beauty, love, and justice." The secret to a meaningful life may be to remind ourselves every day to do the right thing, to love fully, pursue fascinating experiences, and undertake important tasks, not because we are trying to increase our sense of meaning in life, but because these pursuits are good in themselves. So who knows? Maybe it is true, and instead of chasing positive feelings, eudaimonia is about chasing positive experiences and learning from all the fuck-ups we managed to commit during our lives. And rather than seeking happiness as a goal, we should look at it as a way of life. So are humans designed for happiness? Well, I'm gonna leave the answer to that question up to you, but from where I stand, it seems pretty unrealistic to hope to only feel positive feelings and being positive, because it does not look like our brains are actually wired to work like that. It seems that however much we want to fight it, deny it, or ignore it, negatives in our lives are often actually useful. That does not mean that we cannot live a happy life. We just have to find a balance and things that fulfill us and make us feel satisfied and content. Strive for something better and enjoy the journey. At the end of the day, from where I sit, happiness is a choice. It's a state of mind, a mindset. But finding our meaning on this planet, in the circle of our friends and families, and within the society that we subscribe to, we can create our own happiness. Now, what about you? Do you believe that humans are meant to be happy all the time?